Woo. Let's uh let's do this. And I'll bring us in five, four, three. Hey, welcome to the show. Welcome to Speak Freely. I am your host, David B. And as always, I'm here with Mr. Speak Freely. I'm kidding. I'm here with Kuno Stars, my good friend, my oldest, not my, well, I guess one of my oldest friends. Yeah, there we go.
Mm,
He's also the oldest man I know. He's clearly 105. Mr. Kuno, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am beat. I'm really tired today. I didn't get enough good sleep. Also, I drank a lot last night, so that lovely combination just makes it for low energy. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
try. I'm gonna try to keep it high energy, but oh boy, we'll see how far I get before I
Yeah,
bring it back
well,
down.
hopefully with today's topic might get you going a little bit.
Hopefully, we'll see. It probably. I am very passionate about this topic. So yeah. There's no way to segue into that since you just brought it up. We're talking about the Schmoedown, specifically the movie trivia Schmoedown. Now, for those of you who don't know what the heck that is, the best way, yeah, you know what it is.
I know a little bit.
We're talking to the audience that clearly knows nothing. Our audience of at least 2 to 5 people. God bless you for tuning in. The movie trivia Schmoedown, what it is, the best way I like to describe it, it's Jeopardy meets wrestling, in the sense that it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a competition based around movie trivia, basically just random facts about movies, directors, actors, uh, different story plots from different movies and characters, etc., with the guise of, depending on how the competition goes and the outcomes of the matches, we get storylines, just kind of like wrestling, right? You have your good guys, you have your bad guys, you have your managers. There's people you root for, there's people you boo, and it's really really fun. The only difference, of course, between the movie trivia showdown and wrestling is the matches are not predetermined. The competitors in the movie trivia showdown take it, and I can speak from firsthand experience. They take it very, very deadly serious. Like, these cats are no freaking joke, and how they prepare for these matches, the way they study the different mindsets and different rituals some of them do. And I highly recommend checking it out because we're going to talk about it pretty much this whole episode. And the reason I wanted to bring it up, well, not the reason, but a few reasons, obviously, is number one, I am the official composer for the themes of the competitors. I am the guy writing all the themes you hear for the most part, or I'm starting to write all the themes. Not all of them are mine, but most of them are mine. The good ones, at least, are, as I like to say. I'm the guy writing all the themes for the competitors and the teams. There's 9 teams in total, and occasionally I'll help out the video editor named Nerd Chronic. Occasionally I'll throw him a couple of random tracks that I wrote that they're not going to use for promo videos. Um, and also I want to talk about it because I finally, guys, it was a year in the making, but I finally convinced Brian, my good friend Mr. Kuno Stars. I finally got him to finally watch a match, and he got hooked. He's hooked. It's like drugs, guys. It's like drugs. It's not like drugs at all. There's no.
It's almost like drugs. I am so hooked.
It's
It's
so. It's
uh,
so good. Yeah, but all right. So first, I want. There's a lot, and I'm very tired, so I'm gonna try to keep us on track. But first, I legit, because I've been rambling now for like 3 straight minutes. Brian, how did you get into the showdown? And yes, I gave a synopsis, but legit, how did you get into it?
uh, I don't even remember the first time I heard of it. I know it was from you for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
100% came
Mm-hmm.
from you. I don't know if you were just talking about it or if you had a gig with them and I saw it like on some sort of like Instagram story or something. I asked you about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, but basically, I heard it from you, and you sold me right away. It was, like you said, Jeopardy meets wrestling. And one, I love Jeopardy because I am 105 years old. And two, I
Yeah.
love wrestling.
Yeah. It's you're you're totally in that demographic. So
Yeah.
obviously.
I love specifically uh, the fact that you're watching this and you can like just second Jeopardy, yell out the answers at your screen as if you know them,
Hmm.
right? And then I don't know, 75% of the time you actually don't know because they go deep into their knowledge of these movies.
Hmm.
Yeah. But so I know I heard it from you. And then I looked at their YouTube channel and there was a lot of content. There was just a bunch of videos. I didn't know where to start. I got overwhelmed. I said, "No, fuck it. I'm not gonna." It's too much, right? It's like trying to watch, I don't know, Game of Thrones when you're already 8 seasons behind. Like you just, it's overwhelming. You don't want to catch up.
Hmm.
And then we took a little trip to the Midwest. That's I believe
Yeah.
September.
Yeah. Last September,
Yeah,
literally
last
last
September,
September. Yeah.
2019. And you pulled it up on your phone while we were just kind of hanging out, doing nothing in St. Louis. So you got to watch. I got to watch a little bit of what it actually was, and I was into it. I love this. I want to do more. So we got back to California. I looked at the channel again and had no idea where to start.
Hmm.
So I mean, at least I subscribed this time, but still didn't really like jump in on it. And then I saw a video, what, maybe like 3 weeks ago now, that popped up on my YouTube feed, and it was the Inner Geekdom Tournament, round one. I was like, okay, that seems like a good starting point. I'm gonna just jump in and it's like jumping back into WWE. Like you don't know the wrestlers, but you jump in, you see, you kind of get an idea
Yeah.
of you already know what's going on, and so you just gotta
Yeah.
kind of get to know the people and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. So that's what I've been doing. I've been watching all the rounds. It's the Inner Geekdom tournament, and man, it is
Yeah.
fun. Like these people, they get so into their promos. It's crazy.
Oh, dude. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. Good God, that was last September. I don't remember what match I pulled up. I'm pretty sure because it was around September. I know there was the singles tournament and the teams tournament happening during that time, and I, of course, was super invested because before I got into it as writing music for them, I was a fan first. And it's like you said, right? It's like you don't like you get it the minute you watch it, especially if you're like a wrestling fan, and not even necessarily like a WWE fan. Although if you are a WWE fan, you will definitely get it because you look at it, you see the characters, you're like, oh, I get it, I get what they're going
Mm-hmm.
for. But what really makes you stay is the competition, and realizing that the competition is legit. It's real. It's legit. These guys are legit. They either know it or they don't. They either studied for all of it or they didn't. And there's real emotion because there's real stakes because it's a lot of hard work and preparation for these guys. Um, you brought up an interesting point earlier that I kind of want to explain a little bit more. So you mentioned the Inner Geekdom tournament and the Deep Cup questions. So the movie Trivia Schmoedown actually has four different leagues in it. There's the Star Wars division, which is literally it's nothing but questions about Star Wars. And oh my god, there's a Star Wars division happening right now live on Twitch, but they just recently started putting up the first rounds of the Star Wars division on their YouTube. And dude, you talk about deep cuts, dude. When it's just Star Wars, it's like you literally have to cross the T's and dot the I's. If you miss a word by a syllable or by a letter, you don't get the answer right. And it's insane what these guys know. But all right. So there's a Star Wars division. There's the inner geekdom division, which is pretty much it's still movie based, but it's all like what we would consider like geek or nerdy stuff. So of course there's some Star Wars questions in that, but there's also Middle Earth, Lord of the Rings questions. There's all of Marvel questions. There's DC questions. There's Star Trek questions, and it's all based around just like kind of like what we would consider like the nerdy geeky movies, right? So lately, those questions too are starting to become very, very, very deep cut, and it's insane. I watched today's match today too. I'm just like, Jesus, this. But yeah, but the two big ones, or like the ones that I guess are considered more prestigious, are the teams division and then the singles division. And those divisions, the teams division is just a group of two players, and they go up against another group of two players. And then the singles division is, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It's just one on one. Maybe you'll have a triple threat, a five-way match or whatever. But for the most part, most matches are usually just one on one. And that's all the movies. Literally all the movies ever made from the beginning of the film industry to today. It could be anything and everything about any movie that ever existed ever. And of course, for the most part, the movie Trivia Schmoedown, to its credit, doesn't try to do very ambiguous questions because, of course, it's like you said, like with Jeopardy, right? The kind of fun of it is like you as an audience member, you could shout your questions and like try to guess along with the game. So of course, like it is a legitimate sport and competition in my opinion, but it's also meant to be entertainment. So of course they're not going to ask super ambiguous questions about some movie that came out in 1929. You see what I'm saying? But
Mhm.
for the most part, yeah, some questions sometimes they get really really hard. Now each division in each league has a championship. They legit have a championship title. There's their Star Wars championship, there's the Inner Geekdom championship, there are the tag team championships, and then for my money the most prestigious is the single competition, the singles tournament title. And every division has their champion right now. Star Wars right now, the title is held by Alex the Demon Damon. Inner Geekdom is held by Kevin the Smasher Smets. I think currently our tag teams are the Founding Fathers, who are John Roca and Dan Murrell, and our singles title, which I'm pretty sure it's currently Dan Murrell. He won it from Ben Bateman beginning of the year. I'm pretty sure that hasn't changed. Um, so yeah, and yeah, man. And then so that's the divisions, right? Now here's how the game is played because it's not just straight movie trivia knowledge. There's 3 rounds in every match, and the first round is just movie trivia knowledge. It's just a question, and you answer it. So you either know it or you don't. For the most part, the competitors usually write their answer on a whiteboard and they say it out loud. That's the first round. The second round is what either makes or breaks the game, which is the infamous wheel round. So there's literally a big old wheel with different slices of categories, and the competitors usually spin it. And if they don't like the topic they get, they usually get a mulligan unless they land on either opponent's choice or spinner's choice, which are sometimes part of the wheel, sometimes may not be. Um, and then the third round is the questions round, where they'll pick from a random number, usually from 1 to 20 or 1 to 22. They'll pick 3 numbers, and depending on the order of the numbers they choose, the first question is worth 2 points, the second question is worth 3 points, and then the third question is worth 5 points. And then finally, every competitor is allowed 3 JTEs, so they're allowed to ask to repeat the question 3 individual times only throughout the whole match, not 3 each round, just 3 for the whole match. And their manager is allowed to challenge once. If the challenge goes through, they keep their challenge, but if the challenge does not go through, they lose that challenge. And it's usually challenges like if there's like a weird wording on a question, or if the competitor kind of sort of answered the question but it's not the right answer, like for example, difference between a reactor generator to like a water generator type of thing, right? Like they're both generators, but it's not what the question was asking type of thing. So it gets pretty competitive because it's yes, it's a lot of it is based on your pure knowledge of movie trivia, but also now what we're getting, especially these last few years, is it's a lot of people knowing how to play the game, knowing how to take their time, knowing how to use JTEs to maybe like get into their competitors' heads to make them think like they know it or they don't know it, or challenging your competitor to kind of make them get a little flustered, which happens. It's hilarious when the competitors get flustered because some of them get legit mad, and uh, and it's also like, as far as I know too, usually competitors are allowed to choose up to 3 topics for the wheels. And sometimes as a competitor, you'll either put 3 topics you're good at, or you might even do 2 topics you're good at and put 1 topic your competitor is just awful at, and just pray to God that they land on it. So it's part strategy, it also part study, which I think is what's making it so fun right now. But the
Yeah,
thing I want to talk to the most, and yeah, I'll let you talk in a second, is obviously inner geekdom, because that's the thing that you're getting into. Um, and I think it's serendipitous that you jumped into the movie Trivia Schmoedown with the IG tournament, because it does give you like kind of the landscape of who's in the league, and then you get to like obviously see the competitors, see their characteristics, their personalities, and then root and cheer and boo for who you like.
yeah. There's I think several things you touched upon I want to get back to you.
Yeah,
First of which is you mentioned. Let's see, where do we want to start?
I said a
Let's start.
lot. I apologize.
You did see.
Did I mention I've been tired and I don't know how to do things today? More beer. Mm.
So let's start with, I guess, yeah, start with the game itself. So you mentioned the 3 rounds, which I think you did really great job of explaining all 3 rounds. Like, I can picture it in my head, just all 3 rounds.
I could
Yeah.
see it now. Mm. Mm.
uh, but yeah, so the JTE rule, uh, that is not self-explanatory. When you hear like challenge, you get, right? You understand what challenge is. JTE rule, it took me, I think, maybe 2 or 3 matches to realize that JTE is a person. This rule is
Yes.
based off of, or named after a person.
So, so the backstory behind that was, so the league's been around now for 7 years, and at first it was just like a little segment on a radio show, and then eventually the brains behind the operation, Mr. Christian Harloff, decided to make it into a full-fledged competition. And there used to be this guy named JTE, short for Josh the Engineer, and I forget what match it was, because oh my god, he did a lot back in the day. But what I remember specifically why JT rule became a thing is because he literally asked for a repeat like 5 or 8 times during a single round, just because he was trying to kill time to try to see if he can remember and
Mm,
find the answer in his head. Which honestly is a very smart strategic move. Like, I think I know the answer, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Just like repeat the question, and it gives you like 15 seconds to, and then repeat the question, and then eventually the competitors are like, okay, the powers that be decided, okay, we can't let that happen again because that's a lot of dead time. Like,
mhm.
so they eventually came to the rule that like, oh, you're allowed 3 repeats, and if honor in honor of JTE for asking to repeat the question numerous amount of times, they called it the JTE rule, which is essentially it's you're allowed 3 repeats, three
Yeah, and
JTEs essentially.
right. And I think that's a genius strategic move you can use, right?
Mm-hmm.
If, like you said, if like you think you know it, but you're not 100% sure, yeah, use it and give yourself
That extra
uh,
time.
extra time to really think about it.
Yeah.
Because I've been watching it, and sometimes like I don't pay attention to the actual question, and so like I personally I do need that question repeated. And then also there's one specific question where like the wording was really weird, and so I did need that like I would have needed that question to be repeated again. But what I'm seeing from the competitors is like they're using it more like strategy, like buying themselves more time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's one competitor. His name is Ben Bateman, Ben the Boss Bateman, and he's very infamous in the sense that he uses sometimes the JTE rule to get into his competitors' heads. So essentially, and I think he's come out and said like sometimes he'll legit know an answer, like he knows it right away, but he'll pretend and act up and eat up the time to make his competitor think that he doesn't know the answer, to try to ruffle the feathers of his competitor in the hopes that maybe his competitor becomes more lax, or they start thinking like, oh, he doesn't have it, or just to psychologically mess with them. And in some instances it does kind of fluster the competitor, because some of these competitors too, like they're very obviously everyone's super competitive and they want to get going, like let's get the game going, and then you pause and you stop and you slow the game down, so you
Hmm.
kill their momentum. You know what I mean? It's legit very smart sometimes. That yeah, it is like obviously the most obvious use is like, oh, I need to hear the question again, because they don't have the questions in front of them. They just hear it and they have to process that information.
Right.
But if you're like a subtle like you also like to play like head games, trying to get in competitor's head, it's also a very good way of like flustering people. And if you ever go back and see some of these singles competitors, especially with Ben's matches, you can clearly see like the other like, come on Ben, let's go. You know it. Come on. It's like, oh well, taking my time. And it's like, oh dude, he got to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just fun. It's just fun to watch. But yeah, so I've been rambling a lot, so I'm gonna ask my friend Kuna here. So far, what have you thought of the IG tournament? Who have been some of the standout performances for you? And now that you've seen the matches and you kind of know pretty much the competitors, who's your favorite to win the tournament and go and face the champ? And I'm gonna try to pull up here the bracket so I can hopefully post it on the screen. But
Yeah. So before we get to that, I do want to ask you about factions because you mentioned managers.
oh yeah,
Yeah, and so I think we need to kind of clarify that for the listeners.
so it started this year. Before it used to be just either individuals or teams, and sometimes they had a manager, sometimes they didn't. This year, the year 2020 was the first time they started implementing kind of like a teams based type of setting. So there's 9 teams, and each one has their own individual manager. So there's 9 teams and 9 managers. And at the beginning of the year, we had a legit draft where managers got to pick people to be in their team, and it was a legit draft. I think the draft is literally based on how like the NFL goes by and choosing their teams, and based on who was available and blah 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 blah. We eventually got up to 9 teams, and every team is allowed up to 10 slots. So you can have a maximum of 10 members in your team. It doesn't mean you have to have 10. You're allowed up to 10. So some teams did fill up all 10. Some teams only have 6. Some teams have 8. Some teams have 9, what have you. Um, and depending on if you win, if you lose, if you tie, if you knock out, if you have a technical knockout, you accumulate points. And at the end of the year, the team with the most points gets a legit reward. We don't know what the reward is yet. COVID kind of messed a lot of things up. Originally, the reward was going to be a trip to Hawaii, but because of
Oh,
COVID, that's probably not going to be a thing, unfortunately, for most competitors. But I know there's a legit prize at the end of the year for the team with the most points at the end. And it's points based on, like, obviously your competitors, if they competed, and then what happened in the match. So I think for the Intergicting tournament, I I might be wrong. I might need to go check this, but I think if you win your match, it's 3 points. If you lose, it's 1 point. If you get a knockout, like you, and a knockout is you accumulate so much points that your opponent can't go into the round 3 to make up the deficit. So that's a knockout. And then a technical knockout is you go into round 3, but your competitor never has to answer any of the 3 questions. That's a technical knockout. So if you get like a technical knockout, that's 4 points, and I think a straight up knockout is 5 points. Um, and yeah, and it's I think I hope I explained that correctly. I think I did.
yeah. I think that's good. Yeah, yeah. From what I can tell, yeah, knockouts are 5 points, TKOs 4, a win is 3. I didn't know a loss was 1 point though.
I'm
I don't
pretty
think.
sure. I'm pretty sure a loss is like a point.
Okay,
I might
that's
just because some teams are allowed to compete, some teams not, some teams more than others. So I think a loss is like a point. Like you get a point just for competing.
okay. Kind of like in hockey.
Yeah. All right, cool. And I found the bracket.
Okay,
I'm
awesome.
gonna.
So I think we've got a pretty good foundation now. We talked about the teams and the factions. We talked about the actual game itself. We talked about the tournament.
Mhm.
hmm Now this is an inner geekdom tournament, so it's a one-on-one. What I
Yeah.
like is I mean, because yeah, it's COVID, so everything's over like over Zoom basically. I guess I don't know exactly what they're using, but it's over
Yeah.
the internet.
They're currently using Zoom. Is that backwards? Why is it backwards? There's only backwards for me.
No, I can read it.
Oh, you can read it. I don't know how to like. not make it. Anyways, keep going. I'm sorry. I'm gonna try to like figure out how to do this.
I lost my train of thought. So
You were saying
we got a good foundation. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
now we can get into the little nitty gritty of it. You had asked me who stands out
Mm-hmm.
so far, and then right behind you on your little background, you got the bracket of all the competitors in the Inner Geekdom.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have seen all of them. Is that right?
No, I think. Let me see. I think we've.
There's only two more. I think like the Mike Kalinowski and the
Yeah.
Robert Parker matches.
Yes, because the Greg Alba and the Warfather was a playing game,
You're right.
and so was the Jim Fevoda versus Ben Goddard. Yeah, those are the. I think those bottom matches. I don't know if it's showing up on my screen, but those bottom matches are the ones that we're missing. But today, well, as of our recording this today, Chance Ellison versus Paul Oyama debuted, and then earlier in the week we had Emily the Rose Jacobson versus Eric, and then last week we had Janine versus John Humphrey, and Alex Damon versus John Kemp, and then the first week of the Inner Geekdom first rounders we had Barbarian versus Adam Hlavik and Brandon Hanna versus Saul.
Okay, let's start there. The Barbarian. Oh man.
Craig is so Craig is so weird because it's like it's his debut, it's his rookie year, and he's just been crushing the competition, dude. It's scary.
He's so good, and
He's
his
so good.
his character is on point. Like he's got it down. He knows. I don't know how much of it is him, how much of it's the character, but I love what he's doing with it.
I think I think I think it's a little bit of both, right? I think it is like it's like wrestling, right? Like wrestlers always say like your personality on TV, your character is you times 10.
Hmm.
And the most I feel like the most successful character work, at least in the Schmoedown so far, is competitors who find that thing that comes naturally to themselves and then just amp it up to 10. And I feel like the Barbarian is Craig, like that is who he is, you know what I mean? Just
Yeah,
amplified up to like to 10.
yeah. And I love so the entrance, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think we should talk about the entrances too at some point because
Yeah.
of like you mentioned your work on it. But so the entrance, it shows the factions like insignia. It's got your music playing,
Mm-hmm.
and then it cuts to their screen. And Barbarian comes in from like behind the wall, and just enters in like slowly walking out,
Mm-hmm.
hair down, covering his face.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a huge body, just like a massive, massive guy, and it looks pretty intimidating. And then he walks up to the camera, flips his hair back, and it just he's got it down, right? He knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that like stood out to me was this little pet fur ball on the side. This
Yeah.
Elvis.
Elvis, that's right. Yeah.
Yes, the way he uses it, like as he's like listening to it, he's talking to it, he's like consulting Elvis. It's it's hilarious, and it's
It's so
very
good.
well done. Very
Elvis
well
is
done.
Elvis is so over with the fans. We all love Elvis
Yeah.
so much. But also too, the thing that I love about Craig, like his character's work is there for sure, but his knowledge is there too, man. Like he's I think he's only had like about 3 matches so far this season, but he doesn't get ruffled. Like it's like he I think he's had like over 20-point matches, which is like it's kind of insane, you know? But
Yeah.
yeah, so here, I can't unless I can't share the screen, but yes, the first match were the Barbarian versus Adam Hlavik, and Barbarian won. And then the second match was Brandon Hanna versus Saul, and it's also Saul's rookie year. And that to me so far has been the most entertaining match, just purely based on the mic work between those two, because those two went at it on social media, and then like they went on the shows and stuff, and they legit like they had a great story coming up. Like it's like Brandon Hanna recently turned heel, so he's like disowned everybody. He disowned the fans, right? He just starts talking shit about everyone, saying how great he is. And then Saul is his rookie year, so no one knows who he is. He's an enigma. He doesn't really have social media, but he specifically created a Twitter account just to talk smack to Brandon Hanna. So it's like he's this like unknown person, right? Unless you're like in the know, then you know who Saul is, and so you have the anticipation of like, is he good? Is he not good? Because his manager decided to put him in the tournament. You know what I mean? Instead of anybody else. That's another thing too. Managers had to decide who they wanted to put into the tournament. There's only so many slots available to each individual team, so you had to really pick and choose who you thought could maybe go to distance in the tournament. And Saul is with the Den, and originally Brandon Hanna was also in the Den, but when Brandon, the story goes, when Brandon found out they weren't going to put him in the IG tournament, they were going to put Saul. That's when Brandon demanded a trade to another faction, and he was traded to the Burning Droogs. And then, of course, this whole rivalry started, and that's when Brandon turned heel. So that to me was fun, and the match was really good too, man. They both went back and forth a lot.
Yeah, I think that's maybe my second favorite match. Because one thing, yeah, Brandon Hanna's work as a heel, spot on. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
He's buying into it. He's taking it all the way. He's a he's a mean motherfucker. I don't. It's like
Yeah, he's being a dick. I love
he
it.
is, and I'm watching this match, and I kind of want him to lose, but I also kind of want him to win. You know what I mean? Because I want to see more of him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I
Exactly.
love that there's a lot of tension between. It was tension between Brendan Hanna and Saul, but also between the managers.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Kate
Yeah,
and and
Kate Mulligan, and then
and Grace.
yeah, Kate Mulligan and Grace, and at the time, the manager for Brennan Hanna was Robert Meyer Burnett. Although some things kind of happened, Robert's no longer the manager for the Burning Droogs. But yeah, man, that's another thing too. Like even the managers have character work in them,
Mm-hmm.
which is really great depending on who the manager is. And also too, it's to say too, like not everyone has a character. Some people are just are who they are. They're competitors, and some people are just a manager, right? But I honestly believe the more successful people, the one that fans gravitate towards the most, are people that have some type of established character in the show, in the context of the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not that you need one necessarily to be successful in the Schmoedown, but it does help because it's like you said, right? You want to see more of Brandon Hanna, so now you're going to tune into his match because you love
Mm-hmm.
the character work. Does that? It's just yeah, like we all. It's the reason why people tune into reality TV, right? It's like you tune in because you like those characters. Like you either hate, love to hate them or love to love them. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so you keep tuning in, and it's like as a fan, if you're just there for the competition, it's there, dude. And there's legit stats. We have a great stats guy named Frankie Janish, who's legit our stats dude. And he makes all the stats for the Schmoedown. You go on the Schmoedown website. There's all the stats, character, each individual player's like accuracy, average points, the numbers of the teams, everything. If you're like a baseball fan, you're gonna love it too. You're gonna love the Schmoedown too because there's nothing but stats and like the averages and like this player has answered their last question this amount of times compared to this player, and then you know what I mean. So there's
Yeah.
discussion too about actual numbers, which is like
The
really fun.
the the one stat that stood out to me was steal conversion, where you have
Yes,
like this many steal opportunities, and then the next stat over is how many steals you actually got to convert into points.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
that's
you can.
another thing too. I don't think I explained that too. In the wheel round, uh, is the only round a competitor is allowed to steal. So if you miss the question, the competitor, if they get it right, they get the points for the question. And in the wheel round, if you answer it off the top of your head, it's 2 points. But there's also the option to go to multiple choice, and in which case the point conversion goes down to 1. And if you get it wrong, depending if you answered off the top of your head, if you went to multiple choice, if your competitor gets that question right, they earn that point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a game, dude. It's a legit game, and you got to be on your toes because you just never know sometimes.
Yeah, and back to competition, like today's match with Paulo Yama and Chance
Ellison.
Ellison.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't necessarily have like character work per se. Like they were, I think, for what I can tell, they were being themselves. It
Hmm.
was
For the most part,
for the most part, but the competition was
it's
was
so
spot
good.
on. It was like they were neck and neck almost all game long.
Yeah, I think ultimately what ruined Oyama uh was obviously the wheel. It's the wheel round, dude. The wheel round
Yeah,
messes you up. He spun opponent's choice, and then Chance picked the perfect opponent choice category, which was Star Wars. And
yeah,
you can tell too that like this is what happens sometimes too, because Paul Oyama was in singles competition. He was in the singles league, and this is his debut in Inner Geekdom. And I think, in my opinion, I think what got to Oyama was he had that experience because he was champ. He became champ last year, and he was the youngest champion to hold the title. So I think he brought that experience with him to IG, thinking like it was going to serve him. And I think he came a little bit overconfident because especially if you look at that second round, like the Star Wars question, the Revenge of the Sith question, right? Just by the nature that if you know Star Wars, you should automatically know what characters are in certain movies, right? And he got asked who gives the order to wipe C-3PO's memory, and he answers Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Which if you know Revenge of the Sith, right? It's a safe bet, but at the same time too, he answered it so quickly. And the minute he answered, you could immediately see in his eyes, he went, "Oh shit, that's not the answer." And then you see Chance, and Chance is like smiling. And then Chance says, like, "Oh, he knows what the answer is now." And then Chance got that 2 point conversion.
hmm
I think, excuse me, I think what got to Yum, like I was saying earlier, that confidence from competing in the singles division, it kind of worked against him in IG because IG isn't the same as singles. Whereas with singles, it's a little bit you can be a little bit more vague with your answers, meaning that if you're in and around the ballpark, you're almost like an 80% chance gonna get the points for the answer for the question. Whereas with like Inner Geekdom and specifically Star Wars, you can't just be in the ballpark. You got to hit a fucking home run. And if you're off by even a little bit, you don't get that answer. And I honestly think Paul kind of did that mistake where you just answer really quickly. You don't let the time go down. You don't reconsider it. You don't play the thing in your head because it was like a very detailed question. And I think Star
hmm
Wars and specifically that question was pretty much it was like that was it for Paul. I don't think he could have came back from that. And he had to answer pretty much all three of his last round questions. And like getting the 5 pointers, dude, are the hardest questions you'll ever get. I think the average player, like 20 or 30% of the time, is able to answer their 5 point question. That's how hard those questions are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're pretty deep cut questions.
And then you add on top of it that you're in the Inner Geekdom tournament, which already most of the questions are deep cut questions. You know what I mean? Because there's only like so many films within that category of Inner Geekdom, right? You count the Marvel movies and the DC movies and Star Wars and Star Trek. There's like maybe 50, 55 points, 50, 55 films. You know what I mean?
hmm
So some of these questions get repeated. So eventually you got to get into like the nitty gritty of those films. Compare like singles. There's hundreds of thousands of films, so you can make hundreds of thousands of questions. So you can be a little bit more basic with your knowledge. Whereas like with like IG and Star Wars, you really got to study those films and know everything from top to bottom. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think just in general, like if you want to talk about geek culture, like they love to get into the nitty gritty of like the pop
Mm-hmm.
culture of it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's I guess the same thing uh for the Inner Geekdom tournament. Because you know, cinephiles like yeah, they love movies and they love all kinds of movies, right? And they know a lot of like the base, like the surface knowledge, I guess is what they would call it. Of like, you know, you maybe you know like, the first three stars build and the cast. Maybe you know the director, you know, and if possibly you might know like the cinematographer or the script writer. But that's kind of it as far as like the personnel involved. I think there was one question I heard in Inner Geekdom where they asked about um like a very I forget what it was, but a very specific role, right, in the back of the production team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was like, how are you supposed to know that? Like I don't. Yeah, it's just it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like an actor like who played this like really tiny minor character that appeared in the film for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, yeah. I think I know
Yeah,
what you're talking about. It was what it was like a Hobbit question, I think, right?
yeah.
It was like who played this specific dwarf in the Hobbit trilogy, and it was like oh crap, but that's what IG is, because
Hmm.
there's only 55 films, so obviously you just can't ask just base questions because eventually you'll run out of questions to ask. You really have to go deep cut in that, but that's also kind of the point of that division, if that makes sense. Like you wouldn't study for IG the same way you would study for singles, because for singles they're not going to go that deep of a cut. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
usually going to be like what you said, kind of like the entry level, like director, actor's main build, what's the movie about, etc., etc. But they're not going to be like who was the blah 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 minor character, or who cameoed in blah blah blah, or who was in the costume for it. That those type of questions are for IG and for Star Wars. Those two divisions, those two leagues specifically, are the deep cut leagues. Like you really have to know the movies from top to bottom. Whereas with singles and with teams division, you kind of have to have an all around, all encompassing knowledge of everything. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
since it does encompass all the movies, there's only so deep you can go before eventually no one knows anything, right? Because you there's no way you can know everything about thousands of films. Whereas 55 films or 20 some odd films, you can know everything about those films. So
Hmm.
the way these guys study too, for depending on what league they're playing in, is very different. Like I'll give you this story. Uh, I did I managed to play for the last live event of last year, which was held in LA, spectacular, and I got to play out one of the competitors, and and I was backstage getting ready, and he was too, and I saw this big folder just laying on a chair, and I quickly went over it, and it was just this big folder of just like all the movies in IG, and they were all broken up in categories. Like these are all the Middle Earth movies. These are all the Star Wars movies. And each page or each two pages was about each specific film in that category, and it had like the directors, all the stars, what did they star in, what was the point of the movie, what happened during this, and there's like timelines. It was like very detailed about the movie, and I was like, holy shit! And yeah, I just saw this guy just the whole time, the whole day, just going back and forth and reading it, and that's how legit these guys have it. Some of them legit have folders like this thick of nothing but
Uh,
trivia knowledge. Like they take it very seriously.
yeah, it's fun. It's fun though, like just to watch.
Oh yeah,
You,
for sure.
have you ever thought about competing in the fan leagues?
I did compete in
Oh,
a
you
fan
did.
league match, and I was fucking awful. I was terrible, and I was like, it honestly turned me off. I was like, I think I'll just stick to music. I don't know if I want to, if I have the passion or the time to really get into this. You know what I mean? Like, because I like movies, and
Hmm.
I could talk about movies for the most part, but like to the point of like having to like really know them intimately like that, I'm just like, I don't have the passion or the energy for that, if I'm being honest. So,
Mm.
but I'll keep writing music. I think that's easier for me.
Yeah. Let's talk about the music then. You
Yeah.
you mentioned that you write most, if not all, of the themes.
Yeah, so I've started writing music for the competitors and the teams. As of last week, I officially wrote all the themes for all the teams. So each team has their own
Mm.
individual theme. And and then the way Christian told it to me was depending on like the competitors and how good they're doing and how much they're playing, et cetera, et cetera. Eventually, some competitors get their own individualized theme. So, like
Hmm.
for example, I mentioned Ben Bateman, who won the championship last year. I wrote him his own individual theme. I've written a theme for your favorite character, the Barbarian, that epic
Mm.
trumpet orchestra theme. I wrote that for Craig. Um, I've written themes for the IG champ, Kevin Smets. I wrote Corruption's theme. Um, I once did a Lord of the Rings cover for a competitor who is now since retired, named Rachel Cushing.
Mm.
She had a live match in San Diego, and she asked me if I could do like a Lord of the Rings cover but make it heavy, and I did, and it was pretty sweet. I'm not gonna lie. Uh,
Nice.
I've written who else? I've done a couple for certain teams.
Yeah. I know you got a shout out in one of the matches for the Harry Potter theme you did.
I don't recall this. Did I?
Yeah, there was I forget which round, which specific round it was, but yeah, I think Christian Harloff was playing some like Harry Potter type
Oh,
music.
yeah, and he was yeah. So, uh, uh, Christian Harloff, who's the chairman, right, of the Schmoedown, also has like this little radio show he does every morning called the SCN Live, and he also asked me to just write some music so him and his comedian friends could do bits. So he does a Dumbledore impression,
Hmm.
and then he just asked me one day like, "Hey, can you write something to kind of go behind that?" So I was like, "All right, I'll just write something that kind of sort of sounds like Harry Potter, without it being specifically Harry Potter." You know what I
Right.
mean? Because you don't want to get copyright striked.
Hmm.
So yeah, I did. Yeah, I did write that. Yeah, but it's funny, dude. Like I'll share this with you. I've written so much now up to this point, and it's gotten to the point now where it's like I am a part of the show, so I don't always tune in right away. You know what I mean? Like I'll be
Hmm.
busy, and then I'll just watch the match. And I'll be like, oh, that was great, and then I'll have random people on the internet be like, oh man, yeah, we heard this thing, and I was like, what? How'd you hear that? Or it's like, or like you said, like yeah, I heard that you did that Harry Potter theme, and for me, it's like, how would you know that? You don't watch SCN live. That's its own thing. It's not the Schmoedown. You know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't know he played it. Like I like example was Andrew De Malanta has a show, and on the show Christian was on, and uh and he previewed the Barbarians uh theme for that. I had no idea he was gonna do that.
Hmm.
And so I had a lot of people message me on my socials like, man, we love Barbarians theme. And I was like, how the hell did you hear that? Like, I just wrote it yesterday. Like, how did you hear it? And then it comes out like, oh, Christian played it for everybody. And I was like, all right. Like, I can't say anything because he's my boss technically, but it was like a really rough demo of it. I'm just like,
Oh.
I don't want that out there.
Right.
I don't want my first draft out there. Let me put out the final draft, the one with
Hmm.
all the pretty proses and like switching out the words for bigger, smarter sounding words. You know what I mean?
Right.
Actual citations, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But yeah,
That's cool, man. Though you actually got like an actual shout out from Christian because I think Mark
yeah,
Ellis asked like, "Oh, I gotta get like copyright stuff," and Christian's like, "No, no, that's our very own David B."
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love Christian. He makes sure for the most part, like the fans, and he makes sure like the audience knows like who wrote what. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So he's a very loyal dude, and I respect the hell out of him. And obviously he's like one of the first people to really give me a chance to like really show what I can do, showcase my talents and stuff. Because
Hmm.
you've known me for a long time, right? You know me since high school, man. We've known each other since. Holy shit, we're about to age ourselves, so get ready. We've known each other now like 16 years,
Yeah.
maybe longer. No,
16,
18
16,
years,
17, 18 years.
because we knew each other freshman year.
Mm,
So we would have been relatively 14 when we met.
that's true.
Yeah. So now you know how old we are. 14 plus 18 is
105. Got it.
exactly. But yeah, man, you know, like I was like in band. I was really into
Hmm.
music. I started playing guitar in high school. I was in a lot of different bands, and eventually went
You
to
put
school
up your
for.
music on MySpace. I remember that.
Yeah, I would put my music on MySpace and eventually SoundCloud, and then like I went to school for it, got my bachelor's and my master's for it. And I've just been like, just like chomping at the bit. Like I just need someone to give me a shot. Like, and I'll show the world that like I could do stuff. Occasionally,
you,
I do all
you,
right.
you got some talent.
I got something in here. It's something in the tank.
No, you're super talented. I mean, you did the theme for this podcast. The minute I heard it, it's like, hell yeah, this is.
I like that too. Like, I think I was like, what were the notes? We were like, hey man, so what do you want to sound like? And you're like, just like like some newfound glory, some yellow card, some like heavy rock and roll in it. And I was like, I think I could do that. And I love you, man. I said he was like, hey, we think about this, and you're just like, wow, perfect. That was literally, I think that was literally all he told me, and I was like, all right.
Yeah, it's literally exactly the kind of feeling I want.
That's the best.
Yes.
That's the best too. Cause I'll have when I was first writing themes for the Schmoedown, it sometimes my notes vary wildly. Well, I'll get very specific notes. Like when I've collaborated with Ben, because Ben's also a musician, he'll give me exactly what he wants, like very detailed, and he'll be able to tell me more or less in musical terms, like around measure, blah blah blah. I want this kind of feel, or I think we should change it to this chord. And be like, oh, okay, all right, cool. And then sometimes I'll just get like I'll get a random note, like a and this isn't I hope no one if anybody watches this isn't me trying to throw shade. I love all of you. It's just I just think it's kind of hilarious how some of you uh just operate. So I was writing this one theme. No, I got asked by a competitor. I won't say names, but if they're listening to this, I'm pretty sure they'll know who they are. I got asked by a competitor, like, hey, I want you to write a theme for me. And I was like, bet. What do you want it to sound like? And he was like, do you know Into the Spider-Verse? Like the Spider-Man animated movie. He's like, do you know that song, What's Up Danger? So if you know What's Up Danger, is like it's got like this like it's like a very like hip hop ish trappy EDM ish type of
Mhm.
track, right? So I'm like, oh, he wants to write something pop. So I hear it and I write it, and he goes, no, that's not what I want at all. And I was like, but you sent me What's Up Danger. Like he was like, no, I just want you to get the beat. I'm like, the beat? Yeah, you know, that feel. It's just like that feel. And I was like, so I go back and I listen to it, and I think I got it. I was like, oh, he just wants that bass kick. That 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, boom, 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 boom. He just wants that.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay. And then he was like, yeah, you got to make it more rock and roll, man. Not so much hip hop. Make it more rock and roll metal. Okay. So I get a drum. I just do like just a heavy, just like a just a heavy, just downbeats, right? And then just like a really like angry, chordy guitar. And after I wrote that second song for him, he was like, yes, this is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted the first time. And I was like, in my head, I was like, yeah, you didn't really,
Convey that.
yeah. But you know, but it's the difference between people who like, and I know that sounds like shade because I'm terrible with words, but it's the difference between people who like who know music and are educated in that world, and just the layman who just listens to it. You know what I mean? Like for
Mhm.
you, like for example, our theme, right? You couldn't tell me exactly like, yeah, I want this kind of chord progression, and I want the tempo to be 180, and I want the kick drum. You're just like, man, make it feel like Newfound Glory. It's just like I want to be excited, and I was like, I think I can do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just sometimes that'll happen. I'll have some people come up to me and be like, I want it to be exactly like this, or they'll convey it and be like, I want to feel this. And it's my job as the educated musician, right? And I use the word educated musician very loosely, but it's my job as the educated professional musician to be able to convey either your specific notes or that specific emotion, and try to get it. And for me personally, it's like I'll keep trying until I get it. You know what I mean? So
Right.
like yeah, I wrote this one competitor like 2 or 3 songs until I finally got it right. Sometimes I write one song right off the bat. The first demo I write is perfect. Sometimes I have to write 1 2 3 4 demos before I finally get it right. But I'll do the work because one, I love doing the work, and two, yeah, this is me. You know what I mean? Like people hear it and it's me, and I gotta own up to it, and I want to be proud of the work I put out there. Because it's like you said, Christian shuts me out. Christian's not saying it. Christian's not straying away from the fact that, like, yeah, David B wrote this. Our
Mhm.
music composer is David B. So when he throws my name out there and the listeners listen to that music, I gotta make sure it's my best foot forward, regardless of the notes I get. I have to be sure that I'm able to convey any and all notes I get. And I'd like to think up to this point I've done a relatively good job. Um, uh, I haven't had a complaint yet.
Right. Did you write Swag's theme?
No, I didn't do that one.
Oh,
That one was a kid called I'm pretty sure his name is Matthew Reed. I'm pretty sure he wrote
okay.
that for them.
Because
This year.
that one's got I guess a little bit of a different feel. Like I don't think that one's David.
No, that's not me.
Yeah.
No, I haven't been asked to do a hip hop, like a full on hip hop. type of thing yet. So
Hmm. All right,
I mean, I
challenge.
I, I was asked, but then I wasn't asked.
Right. All
So, but
right.
I'd be up for it, man. Like obviously my forte is like rock and roll, metal, guitar driven music, some jazz stuff, but I've been dabbling a lot into like instrumentation, orchestration. Like Barbarian's theme is just a big old orchestra piece, and
Mm-hmm.
that took me a while to really figure out how to like program. Cause I don't have actual musicians to go record. Like I have to go program it note by note on a computer, and that one took me like a good 2 to 3 weeks to really figure it out. And I'm really happy with how it sounds. I think it sounds as epic as I was hoping it would sound. Um,
Nice.
and I'm pretty sure I could do. I've been burping this whole fucking podcast, by the way. I'm so sorry, but I'm tired and I don't care. I apologize, but at the same time, sorry, not sorry. But anyways,
Hmm.
um, yeah, I lost my train of thought, so I'll just stop there.
All right. Uh, I think it's a good segue into a topic I want to talk about. I don't know next week, but pretty soon. Uh, you call this little teaser, right, for a future episode. But I do want to talk about at one point uh, the state of music today, right? And 'cause obviously, you and I, we grew up with a lot of like pop punk and like emo, and then and then we can branch out from there into different areas of music. But the kind of hip hop that's dominating the music today feels very different. And so at some point, I do want to spend a week where we just listen to only top hits, and then we just sit down and talk about it.
No, there's legit. Cause I'm not crazy into pop. I'll listen to some stuff, but I'm not. It's just not my world. And there'll be moments I'll go into Spotify and I'll do like top top hits or global hits or whatever or top 100, and I'll literally go between tracks. I'm like, I have no idea which one's which because they all kind of sound the same to me sometimes. And then
Right.
sometimes, because the thing with pop, right? And yeah, well, I'll explain this more once we get into it. There's only so many chord progressions. There's only so many key signatures, and as a musician, you're trained to hear those chord progressions. So even though you hear them in different keys, it all still sounds the same. Like you just tell like that's a 1 4 2 5. Like I just know right off the top of my head. And then I hear the next song, it's the same chord progression but in a different key. I'm just like, ugh. Like
All right. Yeah. So we'll save that for another time. But as far as the Schmoedown goes, if you're interested, go check it out.
and if I didn't sell you on it, I'm sorry. I really tried with the state that I'm in. I think that's
Uh,
everything. We covered everything.
I
We
think
didn't
so.
cover anything, but yeah, dude, go
Mm.
watch it. Oh, so the one thing I didn't want to say because so you said in the beginning, like you would go into the YouTube channel and then you just overwhelmed because there's 7 years worth of matches in there. 7 years, right? And it can be very overwhelming. So, I would suggest you go into so youtube.com/the schmodown. I'm gonna pull it up here on my computers. Let me do this real quick. But for the most part, I feel like Christian and the crew have done a really good job of curating certain playlists. So what I would suggest is obviously right now, if you can get into the tournaments, I think the tournaments are a great way to get into it. Um, and if not, go into the playlists and just there's like a playlist like must watch Schmodown history is a good one. You'll see the season 7, season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You'll also see like teams tournament, championship matches, like all the championship matches, some of the live events we've had, like actual live, like with a crowd. The Schmodown's been fortunate enough to go to Atlanta, to New York City, to San Diego. Here in Houston, they've come a couple of times to Chicago, and you can see the live events. And if you have a chance, I would suggest you go because it's stupid fun. It's so much fun. You can also go to the throwback Schmodowns, but yeah, I would suggest either entering the tournament, so the IG tournament or the Star Wars tournament currently happening, or if you want to wait, the singles tournament and the teams tournament will be announced soon for later on in the year, or going into the must-watch Schmoedown history. These are some of the best matches we've had in the league, like classic matches that a lot of people talk about to this day that kind of shaped and changed the game for the better. So yeah, so
Awesome. Well,
or
thank
or,
you.
or just jump into it, man. It's like wrestling. Eventually, you'll catch on.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting. Yeah, I'm learning the names of the people and their history. You get a lot of good stuff in the promos. So I would definitely suggest
Oh
watching that.
yeah, our promo guy, man, Nerd Chronic, Eric Rodriguez. That dude's gonna work for a big company. He's gonna work for like WWE or make movie trailers eventually because his work is just fucking epic, dude. He knows how to cut a story so well. So yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's another thing too, right? The promos in the beginning. Even if you're
Hmm.
watching a match for the first time and you don't know who's who, Eric does a really good job of making sure each match has a story to tell going into it. And you get the gist of like who's who, who's done what, and why the match matters. So it's very it's just the way the I know I've been talking a lot because I'm partly gushing because I am proud to be in this, but seeing the Schmoedown grow from just like a couple of dudes goofing off on a radio show to be like it's a full on competition, and then we have a production team behind us, Skybound Entertainment, who is the same production company that makes The Walking Dead, is helping produce the Schmoedown, and then eventually we will have a piece featured on ESPN. We were going to be featured on
Oh,
ESPN before COVID. They were going to come to the free for all, but COVID happened. We canceled the free for all. So for the meantime, that piece on us is kind of like in the meantime, it's just on hold for right now because of COVID. But like we're really close to being considered a legitimate competition. I'm really glad I get to be a part of it in my own small way. So
nice.
thanks, man. Thanks for letting me just ramble forever.
With that, I think that's gonna do it for today.
I did it.
You did
Ah,
it.
man, can you see like you can see like my eye? Usually like I'm like wide eyed, like, hey guys, welcome to the show. And today I'm like, hey guys.
All right. Well, thanks, David. I'll see you later.
All right, that's it.
That is
Nope.
it.
All right, you know where we're at. No socials for you today. And